Welcome to Full Send into Adulthood, hosted by Dr. Cielle a former professor, dean, and certified life coach. This podcast is for you amazing young adults and is a go-to for all things adulting. Join us for conversations about what matters to you, including navigating the often overwhelming ride of adulthood, redefining what's possible for yourself and your communities, and creating a life that you are proud of on your own terms, even if nobody else is doing it. We're igniting a movement where you change the game and challenge the marginalization that often comes with being a young adult. Ready to feel better about this adulting thing? Let's do it.
Welcome, y'all, to this episode of Full Send into Adulthood with me, with Cielle. And full disclosure, today I am feeling low energy. The word that I had earlier for myself, which still feels true, is subdued. And what was interesting to me is we are about to do an episode all about how we fundamentally make sense, how we are valid as human beings. The context for this is that if we are going to build this foundation called adulthood, or this foundation that is called our sense of self amidst this thing called adulthood, so that we can make choices that feel good to us, we can live this life that feels personally meaningful, one of the ways to do this in a way that feels really good and grounded and luscious is to start to build trust with ourselves. And we cannot build trust with ourselves when we continue to badmouth, bully, and belittle ourselves and our brains. You know, that nyah, nyah, nyah voice that's like, oh, you shoulda, oh, you coulda, oh, you're not good enough. So one of the ways that we can start to dissipate that voice, and I'm not saying that voice is ever going to go away, but it can get quieter and much kinder. And one of the ways to do that is for us to notice that the ways that we react to things, the ways that we feel, the ways that we think are all valid and on purpose and not less than. Now, let's rewind to me earlier, though, and how insipid this could be. Is I'm thinking, I knew I wanted to record this podcast. I am committed to getting it out. We're about to head out of town. And in my brain and in my commitment to y'all, I was like, I'm going to get this podcast out before I head on vacation for a week. We're heading to Kentucky. We got a cabin there and family, and I'm excited. So in the midst of my low energy day, what I mean by that, y'all, is it's one of those days for me where it takes a lot extra or a little extra energy and oomph to even be around people, to even speak kindly to the people I love the most in the world. And this morning, did not go well. And so I gave myself a timeout. I said, I'm taking myself to the nail salon. I'm going to get this dang pedicure and at least get myself out of this space. Now, what was interesting is I knew I was going to be doing this podcast. And as I was getting my nails did, I actually second guessed and was like, perhaps I don't do the podcast today because I'm not feeling energetic and I'm not feeling warm and fuzzy and I'm not so excited. And it was at that point that I realized, oh shit. I created my own dang expectation. I created an expectation that in order to record a podcast, in order to provide value for y'all, I made up somehow that y'all would want to see me energetic and excitable and all of those things. And I am not feeling that today. And I got to lean into, okay, you know what? Subdued me can still record a podcast. Subdued me is just as valuable as excitable me. Subdued me can be powerful. And that trust thing for me is, and this is the way that I am to be today. And I will deliver this message, and it is meant to be this for a reason. So we're going with it. Welcome to episode 4. So here's what I want to do today is I want to provide examples of what the heck I mean when I say that we are valid and we make sense. These are the two things that I hear most about related to questioning our value. The first is whenever we feel anxious, we feel worried about something, and how that sounds is, I shouldn't feel so worried. If this was meant for me, I would be excited. If this was meant for me, I wouldn't feel scared. If I actually had confidence, I wouldn't be anxious. Okay, that's just a no. And I promise I'll explain why. The other one is procrastination. Ooh, even when I say it, where y'all like, oh yes, it's the worst. And a lot of times procrastination is linked with laziness, which in, I will say, some of your brains and some cultures is probably one of the worst words that you could call someone, lazy. And so we're going to talk about that one too. But before we go into both of those, let's talk about our... I love that I told y'all that I was subdued, except for now I'm getting excited. So you know what? Talk about emotions. Did y'all know? So there is research just randomly, because this is the stuff that's in our brain, that if we allow an emotion to be, and I will say that depending on the research, the time frame changes, but the least amount that I've seen is that if we allow the emotion to be, it works through our body within 90 seconds. Now, I will say sometimes that feels really fast, but think about all the times that we will re-trigger that emotion based on us making ourselves wrong and shaming ourselves into believing that we shouldn't feel that certain way. Okay. That was my tangent. Let's go into the nervous system. So we have this thing called a nervous system, and our nervous system's number one job is to keep us safe. Let me repeat that. Our nervous system's number one job is to keep us safe. Now, here in the Western world, we have idealized our brain. And we have created this separation between brain and body. Now, I get it. They're all linked. But for the purpose of this analogy, I want you to think about it this way. We tend to think that our brain controls everything, that the way that communication is top down. Our brain thinks it, and then it sends messages down, and then our body does it. However, this is flawed. And how do we know this? Y'all, if that was the case, you would be able to think yourselves into doing a lot of things that we are not actually able to do. If we are in the midst of a panic attack and no amount of thinking, I shouldn't be in this panic attack. Okay, just stop the panic attack. Just stop, is going to stop the panic attack. Similarly, using procrastination. I know your brains have tried to tell yourselves, let's not procrastinate. We're not going to procrastinate right now. This is ridiculous. Why are we putting this thing off one more time? If the way that the communication happened in our body was always top down and top had control over our body, we wouldn't procrastinate as much. So what research actually showcases is that 80% of the communication is actually body to brain, and only 20% is brain to body. Also, that part of our nervous system has had a lot more time to develop than our frontal cortex. So I'm just going to put that there. Another thing that is important to know about our nervous system is that our nervous system communicates in our bodies. It communicates via emotions and feelings. It does not communicate with language. So it has us feel things. One feeling is anxiety. Now, anxiety is an emotion that signals danger. There is a purpose to this thing called anxiety. It is like, dude, there is a threat. We think there might be danger here. And so it's going to start a stress response in our nervous system to have us survive. It wants us to stay living. And so it's going to do one of four things. And I'm sure y'all have heard of this already, but it's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. It's going to do one of those things. Again, your body is going to react to the threat in a certain way. Now, what's even more important to note is that this is in our DNA. We come from humans who have amazing spidey anxiety senses. How do I know? Because they're the ones who freaking survived. So let's go back in time to human ancestry. So our ancestors are hunting, and they hear something in the bushes. Now, those with a keen sense of anxiety, those who are able to sense danger and threats really well, have over time realized that rustle means saber-toothed tiger or anaconda. And they react appropriately to either save their lives or kill the thing, right? So they can fight, they can flee. Some of them may freeze if you're a possum, right? And you're freezing and that saves your life and you play dead. Or you fawn, you people please at that point as a saber-toothed tiger, but you try to appease, right? If you're in front of a bear, it's okay, mama bear. You do whatever you do. We're going to appease you. We're going to make you happy and we're going to walk away. We do not want your cubs. Can y'all see that the ancestors who had this emotion and used it well, then procreated? And then there's us. So when we're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't feel anxious, I'm like, are you kidding me? We've got master spidey senses in this anxiety realm. Again, it is just in our DNA. You're welcome. In an effort to keep us alive. Now, here's where it becomes problematic. Is now in our modern age, we can't tell the difference in our body, as in our nervous system doesn't know, is this anaconda or is this an email from my boss? Is this saber-toothed tiger or is this a text from my ex? For both of those, we register in our brains, we think, oh shit, threat. This may be a threat. And when we feel that, again, our body is going, oh my gosh, anxiety, that means danger. Let's elicit this stress response to make sure that we survive this thing. Can y'all see that this is as our bodies are designed? There is nothing wrong here. Our bodies are designed this way as a protective force to keep us alive as well as it can. And if y'all are here watching or listening to me, can y'all see that it has worked up until this point? Yay, I am so glad, because it allows us to be together, amongst other amazing things, I'm sure. So can you see that anxiety is not a bad and wrong emotion? It is a natural response to threat and danger. It is a natural response for us in our lives. It is appropriate. I repeat, you are not flawed because you feel this thing called anxiety. You are not flawed because you are anxious about an email or a text or about a new job or trying something new. And again, your nervous system's number one job is to keep us safe. And it utilizes this emotion called anxiety to signal danger and a threat to then cope with that thing in hopes of surviving. Now, what happens though when it actually stops us from doing the things that we know we want to be doing? Because yes, anxiety is an emotion and yes, it can pass through us, but how do we have that pass through us quickly? And again, not stop us from the things that we know are meaningful to us. things that we know are going to elevate us, and it's the thing that we actually want to try to do, even if it's scary. So what's an example of this? An example could be you finally got that job that you've been going for, and you're really excited for it. Or you get into that school that you really wanted to do, and you're about to go into the first lab or the first class, and you feel trepidation. You feel anxious. Now, one way that we tend to interpret that in our society based on the messaging is, oh shit, this job must not be the job for me because I'm feeling anxious about this job. I thought I was supposed to feel calm and excited and loving and all these amazing things all the time about this job that I have never done before. So can y'all see that when anything is new, when we are doing anything new in our lives, can you see that that can be perceived as a threat? Why? Because our nervous system fundamentally does not know, am I going to survive this thing? Are we going to survive here? I know you say you want this job, but we've never done this job before. So ding, 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 ding. Is this a red flag? Is this a threat? Is this danger? Do we need to flee? That is automatically going to show up. And one way of reacting to this is, there you are, anxiety. Thank you so much for protecting me. Oh my gosh. It is important for me to mention here that when we are talking about anxiety on this podcast, I am referring to mild, maybe a little bit into moderate, but mild anxiety, meaning that we can function in our daily lives. I am not referring to debilitating and severe anxiety here. If you do have severe or debilitating anxiety, health professionals are there to support you or around to support you. And if you are struggling to find somebody to support you, please reach out to me. I have many, 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 many contacts. Okay. So in these cases, we're talking about mild anxiety. So you may be feeling mild anxiety because you're about to go do a new thing. And anytime we start something new, our nervous system registers that as a possible danger, and anxiety will show up, that emotion, as a way of protecting us. So we get to say, thank you so much for protecting me. I got it here. This is actually what's going to move us forward. This is actually something that I want to try. And I know that it's going to feel stressful. I know that I'm going to feel nervous, but I got us. And you keep going. I feel like it's so important to mention now too, because so many of y'all talk to me about building confidence, and you think that if you choose, and all of us do, again, nothing wrong with this, it's sort of perpetuated in the media, is we think that if we find the thing that we're supposed to be doing the rest of our lives, it's going to feel amazing all the time, that we're going to feel confident and motivated at that thing, even though it's new. So for example, let's say you've known that you want to be a public speaker. You want to be on stages. You want to do a TED Talk. That is what you want to do. However, you have never done it before yet. You will absolutely 99% of the time feel nervous getting up on that stage. You are not going to feel confident until your body can register, we are safe here. So what does it take to get up on that stage and start building this speaker career of yours? It means getting on the stage nervous, having anxiety show up and say, dude, we have never gone on a stage this big before. Is this a saber-toothed tiger? And you get to say, no, not saber-toothed tiger. We're actually good here. This is what we want to do. We're going to get on this stage. Once you complete your talk, once you speak on that stage and you get off, that's when your body registers, we're still alive. Woo! We lived! Yay! And as you continue to do that, as that becomes the norm, your body then realizes, oh, this thing called talking on stages, oh yeah, we got this. We don't die from this. We're not threatened by this thing anymore. And that's when you start to feel the confidence. That's when you start to not feel nervous anymore. But let me just also put out there that Beyonce, Miss Sasha Fierce, she says she still gets nervous before getting on a stage. And yet she still does the thing. That is the magic that is us. Ding! Alrighty. So let me reiterate. Just because you feel anxiety for this job that you've been vying for years, for this school that you just got into and you know you want to go to, for trying something new that you have never done before, this thing called anxiousness is going to show up. Thank you so much for trying to protect me. Sometimes I really do legit picture a bodyguard. And I think, okay, thank you, love you so much. I know you are going full force right now. You think that we are major in danger. And we're going to try it. I promise. I'm going to try it, and then I'm going to let you hold me for a little bit. Lots of times I got to shake it out. Lots of times you'll see me shaking before something big that I do. And then we go, and then we take care of ourselves afterwards. It does not mean that you are not meant to do the thing. We do have agency here. So how does this relate to procrastination? Well, let me tell you. So there are a variety. There are many, many, many reasons that we procrastinate. But what I tend to hear is always that it is bad from people, right? Or we experience it as like, oh my gosh, how dare I procrastinate? I am stupid and worthless and ridiculous and I'm not smart and I can't do anything with my life ever again because I can't get over this procrastination. Why can't I just study for this test or write this dang email that I've been putting off for 3 months? Or I was supposed to get shoes 7 months ago and I still haven't done it. Or this paper. I always tell myself that I'm going to write these papers as soon as I find out, but here I am in finals week, and I still have written none. First of all, y'all, that's most human beings. And what if there was an amazingly awesome reason that we are procrastinating? What if we could unshame this thing called procrastination for ourselves so that we can not only start to understand ourselves a bit better, but we could get a sense of, this is why I'm procrastinating. And you can actually validate for yourselves, do I actually want to continue procrastinating and not do this thing? Does procrastination actually work for me in this sense? Or do I want to go do the thing? I'm actually putting this thing off for a reason that I don't agree with. Let me explain. So when we were talking about stress response, whenever we signal threat, our body will go into a stress response cycle. And those include fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So let's go over each of those. Procrastination can actually be a symptom of each one of these things. How? So let's take flight, right? We're fleeing. What does that mean? It means we are trying to escape and avoid. So an example of this for me is taxes. Every year I say I'm going to manage my taxes and have a date with my money every single week, every single month. So come tax season, it's going to be so easy. Y'all, I have not once done that. Every tax season, I am filled with procrastination. I wait and I wait and I wait. And what am I avoiding? I am avoiding looking at my finances and the uncomfortable, nasty feelings that I have about how I did not do it good enough. I should have known better. I should have invested better. I should not have purchased that program. I should have all these things all of these ways that I start proving to myself via doing taxes that I am not good enough, I avoid and I put it off. Can you all see that it actually makes sense for me to want to avoid belittling and bullying myself? Like, that doesn't feel good. I don't like those feelings. I don't like looking in a mirror and facing those feelings. I don't like rethinking all of these choices, all of these ways that I could have done things better. And of course, there are ways for me to get out of it and to make it all good. Yes, but for the purpose of this conversation, of course, I want to avoid that. And so I procrastinate until I realize I actually have a say over how I talk about this or how I experience this or how I do taxes. And then I go do the thing. Now let's talk about procrastination as a freeze response. So freeze, think about shutting down. When we numb ourselves, when we disassociate, a lot of times that could be scrolling on a phone. Sometimes we are procrastinating because we are in full shutdown mode. What comes to mind here is burnout. We have worked so hard that we are now so low energy that we have got to do only the minimal tasks in order to survive. So can you see that in that realm, if you're procrastinating a 30-page paper because you can barely handle making yourself food at night, again, that makes logical sense. Your body's going to be like, oh, in order to survive, we need to eat. So with whatever energy we have left, with whatever capacity we still have, let's feed ourselves, which means, yeah, that 30-page papers, that's to the side. Priority level, down. That email that I said I was going to write 3 months ago, eating, email. Perhaps we eat. Now let's go to fight, because fight makes me very happy oftentimes. Because a lot of times we're actually going to notice that we're procrastinating to defend ourselves against something that we deem as exploitative or not right or ethically incorrect. And we don't actually validate that and pat ourselves on the back. Instead, we tend to make ourselves wrong for this thing called procrastination, when actually our whole body is like, we're going to revolt against somebody that's trying to mistreat us. So think about the workplace. Let's say somebody told you, you have to do this report. And that's the thing that you've been procrastinating. But the context of this is that you actually wrote the dang report. You put it on your boss's desk, except for your colleague pretended that it was from them and your boss believed your colleague. So your boss thought that report that you wrote, your colleague did, they got accolades, and now your boss is telling you, you need to write me a new report. I never got the first one that you wrote. Can y'all see that that's a huge FU? That is a huge, like, if you are procrastinating that thing, valid. Should we do another? Why, sure. Let's do another. Ooh, let's pick a juicy one, like going to college right after high school and knowing that you need to pay for it yourself and get financial aid. How many of you at that point are unclear about what you want to do as a job or several jobs? And yet there is this pressure to go hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for a corporate America that may or may not hire you. A company that may or may not pay you a survivable wage, a living wage. For a company that may not pay you enough to be able to pay back your student loan debt, let alone thrive in this economy. And yet we berate ourselves and we make ourselves wrong for saying, hold on, let's procrastinate here. What if I held off college for 1 or 2 or 5 or 20 years? until it actually feels like a choice that serves me because I know that that's the next right step. And the money and the finances and all of that seem to work out. Or those things are worth it for me to go for that thing. Can y'all see that procrastinating here can actually be you standing up against your own exploitation? That's pretty gnarly. All right, last one, fawning. Fawning is probably the one that is the least well known, and fawning is the people pleasing. Y'all, I fall a lot into the fawning. It's the people pleasing, it's the appeasing, it's the catering to others' needs. Perhaps you are procrastinating because you are feeling like you want to appease or you're catering to other people's needs at the detriment of your own. And so your body is having this genius way of like, we're not doing that. We're not putting other people's needs first above our own when we've already done that for 20, 30, 40 years. Right now, we're going to sit our ass down and we're going to take care of ourselves. I just realized I did that today. Today, I'm going to go and get myself a dang pedicure, and I'm going to procrastinate recording this podcast until I feel better. But guess what, y'all? In this scenario, I'm actually recording the podcast. If I didn't go do that thing, if I didn't actually procrastinate and serve myself first, there is a high likelihood that this would not have happened today. And then what? And then I'm breaking a commitment that I had to myself to do this. And sometimes for me, it's important for me to recommit, and that's totally fine. But today, it feels really good to do it the way that I did, to honor the procrastination, to honor that I was totally in a triggering stress response cycle, to do what I needed to do to close that cycle so that now I can be here present with y'all. Ooh, I love that that was the example that just showed up. Can y'all see that these so-called negative things that we do, as in anxiety and procrastination, can actually be some phenomenal things that we do if we look at it from a different perspective? I think this is one of the reasons that perspective shifts is so powerful, is that when we can start to understand, oh my gosh, this is what my body is doing. It's just trying to keep me safe. Oh my gosh, I'm procrastinating because I don't want to accept my own mistreatment anymore. And my body recognizes it. My brain's just a little slow right now, but it's caught up now. It's caught up. Thank you very much. And once we have that knowledge base, once we have that data, once we can start to understand ourselves a little bit more, we can then start to build the trust and the confidence that we have in making choices from there. And it makes it so much easier. So if worry or anxiety or nervousness shows up, you can ask yourself, what am I afraid of here? What am I actually scared of? What am I worried is going to happen? And once you have the answer to that, you can then make a choice on moving forward and doing the thing or not doing the thing. And there's no label on one being better than the other. It really is what serves you best and what you're trying to accomplish. For example, for me, what does that look like in my personal life is the people pleasing has been showing up. And what I am afraid of or what scares me is people's upset and rage. And that is from when I was little, y'all. This is like a childhood trigger that shows up. And I go down this spiral of I'm not enough. No matter how hard I tried, I can't appease them. I'm not enough. For me, people pleasing sometimes looks like the freeze and the shutdown. I will shut up. I won't do the thing. I basically disassociate and I become quiet and numb. That is actually a signal now for me when I do those things of, oh my gosh, this is me trying to appease. And when this thing happens and I'm trying to appease these people, I shut down and I shut up. Now, as a kid, that survival tactic, that way of coping made so much sense. I needed to make sure that I had a roof over my head. But now what's important to me is when I feel like I am being mistreated or disrespected, my new commitment to myself is to stand up for myself. And because that's what's important to me, I then know what actions to take when the signals show up. They are amazing signals for me to say, if I am capable right now, I'm going to stand up for myself. Ooh, and when you're procrastinating, you can actually ask yourself, why am I procrastinating? And you can use freeze, flight, fight, and fawn as 4 questions to ask yourself. Am I fighting something right now? Am I fleeing something and trying to avoid? Am I fawning right now? Am I trying to appease? Am I trying to just cater to somebody? Is that what is happening here? Or am I freezing? Are those the reasons that I'm procrastinating? Now, they may very well be, and they may be for another reason. But the point is, the reason behind your procrastination is not a negative. Even though we've been taught it's been negative all our lives. Today, we get to think about it differently. And we get to actually validate that side too. All right. I guess we'll end here. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for being amazing human beings. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen. And I hope that it was useful to you in some way. I hope that me subdued today and showing up this way, however I was going to show up, was a value add in your life. So thank you again for being here, and I'll see you next time. I realize that we are at the beginning of our podcasting journey together. However, if you are already excited, already wanting to share this with people in your lives, already thinking that it would be beneficial to have these conversations on a more global scale, there are ways that you could support that. One of the main ways is to like, follow, and subscribe on whichever platform you are watching or listening to me on. You could always comment. I would love to know what you found helpful or interesting in any of the episodes. And of course, if you have ideas about what conversations, what topics you would like to cover in the future, please let me know. Again, this podcast is for you. Other ways that you can find me are on social. So I am on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Cielle Amundson. That is at CIELLEAMUNDSON. Find me there, say hi, let's start a conversation. And if this is something that you think other people in your lives would love to be a part of, would love to hear, would love to be in conversation with, please share this with them. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you or having you at the next episode.